Thank you for all coming in person. It's good to see you all here. And City of Fargo is doing really well with vaccinations. We're up to 55%. So we do allow no masks and social distancing, and you recommend everybody get vaccines. So that's been something that we've been very pleased about the community's doing. We'll start out with roll call, please.
Beltoff? Bigwood?
Here.
Bonsack, we have Moen. Okay. Carlsrud?
Here.
Erdman?
Here.
Johnson, we have Brian Riley. Mahoney?
Here.
Nielsen? Oh, okay. So you're... Okay, I have you confused. I'm sorry.
Did you get
Schmaltz?
Jerry told you here's.
I got him, yep.
Okay.
Schmaltz? Schmidt?
Here.
Bean?
Here.
Dale? Stephen Dale? Okay,
Was that a yes?
I don't think so. Dick Johnson? Carol Siegert? We have a quorum.
Missing anybody? Got a quorum?
Yes, we do, I'm sorry.
Okay. Mary, do we have any introductions today of anybody new to the group?
We all know each other, but it's been a long time since we've seen each other.
Should probably introduce Danny Hansen that's on the screen. She's the new executive director of the North Dakota Water Users because Lance just went over to the Milk Board.
Oh, okay. Nobody else? I have a motion to approve the order of agenda. Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
To have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 12th, 2021 meeting. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Very good. Ken Vian is sometimes quiet as an officer, but I think he's going to say something today. Ken, go ahead.
I'm fine. We'll just let the meeting progress.
Oh my goodness, I thought maybe he'd pitch you guys for a little money for the Teddy Roosevelt library, because I hear you need 100 or 200 million. Right?
They can meet me right afterwards.
Okay, update. Kip, you are you ready?
Sure. Can you hear me?
You got some exciting news for us, don't you?
Lots of exciting news.
Okay.
We're constructing. Kim, will you be able to pull those photos up? Brought some photos for you. A lot better than me just talking. So give her 1 minute. My report is also on tab S. A lot of similar stuff too on there. So got a map of the project. Today I'm bringing you pictures from the 3 spots, the intake at Washburn, the pipeline in the middle of the project near Carrington, and the discharge structure near Cooperstown. We'll start with the intake. You've seen this photo before. This was kind of the first start of the wet well structure. That was the secant form structure that the contractor used to drill the secants. The contractor at the wet well was ICS out of Grand Forks, by the way. Okay. This is what the site looks like now. You can see the crane is actually excavating out material out of the inside. This was taken, I believe, just a couple days ago. Okay. Okay, so here we have a few photos. You can see the secant wall. They're numbered on the left-hand side of your screen. The contractor is doing some repair to some of the voids that they found in the secants after they excavated. You have a pump truck there. The middle one is a long reach excavator is digging the material out of the inside. And then on the right is a subcontractor installing dewatering wells, because as you go down, we're right next to the Missouri River, you are going to encounter groundwater. There's 10 groundwater wells around the outside, pumping approximately 5,000 gallons per minute. This is what the site looks like without the wells running. And what else we got? Okay, so then, sorry, stop me if you have any questions. I'm going to move on to the pipeline. The pipeline contract was awarded to Garney, and the subcontractor just this week on Monday started stripping the topsoil. So you have 2 photos there. It all went really well. The subcontractor was thinking about 2 weeks to take off the topsoil, and they wrapped up in 7 days. So that's good news. And then over to the discharge structure, Industrial Builders was awarded the contract. The Cheyenne River is kind of down in the trees. And I think I got one more photo here. So kind of a before and after. So on the left is when they just started clearing, right about where that dark spot is where the dozer cleared off. That's where the structure, the discharge structure will sit. And on the right side is they excavated that down, and today they're beginning their pier foundation pours with concrete. So hopefully next time we meet, we can bring you some more photos.
Any questions? Kind of exciting to see us starting to build.
Very exciting.
But John Shockley will show you his intake area here in Fargo, and one of the things you'll note the difference is a lot more concrete, right, John? Piles of it. Engineer recommendation, you told me something happened on the engineer's estimate, but what bid a little bit different?
So we have the bid tab summary for you. Turn to tab C, or tab T, sorry. So we advertised and we opened bids May 11th at 2 o'clock for, this is what we like to call contract 2 at the intake. It involves a roughly a 1,600-foot bore under the Missouri River, the finished liner on the inside of the wet well, and then there's some piping at the end of the tunnel that will help the screen, or attach to the screens. So there's some associated piping material. I'll go through the bids. We have a base bid, which is what I just described, and then we had a bid alternate. And the bid alternate removed the steel piping and replaced it with reinforced concrete with a thin steel liner. First one was PKG Contracting. The base bid was $36 million. The bid alternate was a subtraction of $477,000. Michaels Corporation, the base bid was $18.8 million. The bid alternate added $414,000. Southland Contracting, base bid was $29.5 million. The bid alternate added $499,000. ICS, base bid was $20.7 million, and the bid alternate subtracted $465,000. And then that leads us to the engineer's recommendation, Black & Veatch engineer's recommendation. Lisa, did you hand that out to everybody? Okay, so everybody's got this letter from Black & Veatch. They walk through the bids. The engineer's estimate, by the way, was $24 million. The bid alternate added $2 million. So they walked through the bids. Their bid estimate was right in the middle of all the bids, of all 4 bids. They walked through the qualifications, all checked out, and on page 3, Black & Veatch recommends that Garrison Diversion, Lake Agassiz, award the bid to Michaels Corporation for the base bid of $18,896,900. They further recommend that the additive bid alternate of $414,625 be rejected. So they're saying use the steel pipe, not the reinforced concrete pipe.
So why do you think the engineer's estimate was higher? What were you guys looking at that they changed in the bid or improved?
The two risky parts, the two complicated parts are the marine work, so you have to go and set up barges in the Missouri River. That's one of the riskier parts, and then just the tunneling. And a matter of, if you think it's gonna take, 4 weeks to 6 weeks can really shift that estimate. And also steel prices are really volatile right now, and so depending on where you think steel is gonna be can really influence that price.
So it's just amazing to me, you have a $35 million bid and we have an $18 million bid. That's a huge swing.
Right.
They're not tight together, so it's interesting what other people were thinking as risk factors, so. But this is exciting for us because we save some money, right? Just think what we can do with that extra $6 million, huh?
Yes.
So I assume we have to take a motion on this, Mary, is that right?
Yeah, we'd be looking for a recommendation to award to Michaels. And then there's a couple other items. I don't know if you want to handle them all separately or all together.
Let's do this one first, this is kind of fun. Can I have a motion to award? Is that the right part?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Comments? Ken, you should be really excited about this. Just think of your library if it dropped in half the price. Wouldn't you be excited? Yeah, okay. Roll call vote.
Eltoff. Bigwood.
Aye.
Moen. Carlsrud.
Yes.
Erdman.
Yes.
Lamke.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Yes.
Riley. Schmaltz.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Vien.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Very good. Now you're going to talk about notice to proceed?
Correct. Yep, we'd be looking for a motion, notice to proceed for Michaels. Yep.
And if they give you this motion, then how soon will you be proceeding?
So if we issue the notice of award, I believe Michaels has 10 days to return all their documents. We have to go through all their bonds and all their documents. I think we could issue a notice to proceed mid to late June.
Okay. Do I have a motion? Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Eltoff. Bigwood.
Yes.
Moen. Carlsrud. Dave.
Yes.
Erdman.
Yes.
Lamke.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Yes.
Riley. Schmaltz. Schmidt.
Yes.
Vien. Motion's carried.
Say, somebody who's online has their mic on. We can hear you breathing. I think you're doing okay on your breathing, but thank you. Contractors agreement. Kip?
We just provided that for your information. We can go through that if you would like, but that's what will be sent to Michaels.
Very good. Mary, program set schedule or schedule you're going to talk about, the program schedule?
I
Tab W?
Yep, I sure will do that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Water Commission.
So if you would turn to tab W, this is our program schedule, and it really is more focused right now on the construction projects. So you'll see on the top, we have the early out construction projects, the Missouri River Intake WETWELL site.
Tab W, it's tab U.
Tab U, sorry, tab U. In case if you guys were not realizing where I was. Yes, thank you. Kip already showed pictures of how well the construction is going, but if you'll look on here, it shows that we do plan by the middle of November that project should be completed. And then the next one is the early out pipeline contract where Kip showed the pictures and they've just removed the topsoil. They do plan on, is it May, Kip, starting to do some of the boring? Sorry, we are in May. June, okay. And then you'll see that construction is actually going on till next summer, but I think after, in the spring, that's more of the restoration part of it, that they hope to have the pipeline in this fall. And then the last one is the Cheyenne, or the third one of the early outs is the Cheyenne River discharge, the outfall thing. And you can see that they have started there, and same thing, it will be going through next summer. And then the last one that we have on there is the Missouri River intake, the screen structure and tunnels, which you were just approving the bidding and the awarding, and then Garrison Diversion will have to approve that as well. And it really does hinge on the State Water Commission approving the grant from the state side, which they're meeting on June 8th. The subcommittee already looked at our application, didn't have any questions. So June 8th is when we'll hope that the State Water Commission approves the award. And then construction would actually hope to start this summer and go through the end of next year. And then if you actually turn the page, right after tab U is a more detailed construction schedule for the screen structure and tunnel, and I won't go through that in detail, but it just shows a little greater granularity on that one. That's what I have for program schedule, but I sure would answer any questions.
Any questions on schedule? Let's go to that budget.
Okay, and then for the planning level budget, which is tab V, you'll see how much funding that we have been spending. Like I said, the last couple of meetings is the top part in yellow is what has been completed, and we've actually completed $23.4 million. In blue is the final design and other land acquisition administration that we're currently working on. We are at 85% complete of what has been approved. That's $7.8 million is our estimate. We've expended $6.6 million. And then the 2019 funding is in green of what we have approved so far. And we have a budget of $3.7 million. We've expended $921,000 for that. In orange is the construction that has been approved. You'll notice that the intake screens and structure isn't on there yet because that hasn't been approved yet. But for the 3 early out projects that we have going, we have an estimated budget of $18.7 million, and we have expended $2.9 million. So for everything that has been approved or is ongoing right now, we are at 63% complete, $53.7 million, and we have actual expenses of $34 million. And Mr. Chairman, I would answer any questions, but we need to have it.
Any questions of how Mary's handling the budget of millions of dollars?
Pretty exciting for how much money we're spending, and you can see the progress that's going on. It's
I
very
remember when we used to talk 100,000, so it's nice to see. State Water Commission funding requests. What are you going to ask those guys for?
That is, I kind of already did that just a little bit, saying that we have the application in front of them. What we put in the books this time is tab W, is what we sent in for the application. And it is actually the last page that you probably want to look at. And this is the cost share request, actually the form that you submit to the State Water Commission. And on the back page of that, you'll see that how much we actually requested. And this was before the bids came in, because of course we had to have this in probably the end of April, that we had a total estimated cost of $23 million. So with the bids that are coming in and the construction phase services, that our request will actually cover that.
Very good. Any questions on that? So just for the group, there was some confusion about which pool we're taking the money out.
Yes. So we were told during the legislative session that all of the funding, Garrison, or for this project, we deferred $20 million to next biennium because there was that fall in the Resources Trust Fund. So we really had $23.8 $0.85 million that we hadn't requested of the 1921 funding. And during the legislative session, we had heard and thought that that funding was not available to us, that we'd only be looking at the 21-23 funding for this. Well, the State Water Commission, the revenues have been coming in for the Resources Trust Fund, so that request of $23 million is actually going to be 1921 funding, the funding that we thought we didn't have access to. So that was a really nice thing to learn. So we will probably have a budget of $89.7 million now that we have that extra $23 million from the 1921 funding available.
So that's good news. Tammy Norgard, you going to tell us how that lawsuit's going? You making some progress? Are we making Missouri sweat a little bit, or?
You know, we're still briefing, and Missouri has filed another brief last week. We have our response due June 28th, and there's nothing surprising. They're briefing. They're arguing that we're affecting downstream impacts in Missouri. They're arguing that this is an out-of-basin transfer of water, and that there's cumulative impacts. Those are really their arguments. And I always point out that it seems that they're arguing the NDOS or even the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. They're arguing about that, like that the water is going across the divide. And central North Dakota is just the 6 miles of pipeline for all in-basin use for the 20 CFS. So our point is always that they're arguing about the wrong project. But we have one more brief due, June 28th. It should be set for oral argument, likely end of July, maybe August, looking for a decision sometime next fall.
So just for the public, you know, when we draw that 22 out, how far does Lake Sakawea drop? Does it drop a couple feet, or what happens?
You know, it's actually not measurable on the river gauge. So in North Dakota, you can't tell on the river gauge that there's a change with 20 CFS. And so that's our argument, that for Missouri to say, because of this withdrawal, they're going to be, you know, they rely on their water intake locations, and they don't want to have to drop their water intake locations. They're saying that it's going to take water out of their state parks, that we're going to interfere with navigation, barge traffic, just a number of things. And we're saying, how could that be in Missouri when we can't even measure it on a river gauge here in North Dakota? So that's our
Even when you go to the 165, it's really hard to measure that as well, is it not?
It has very little impact.
Very good.
And that's been reviewed. I mean, the point is, it's not even from a NEPA perspective, it's not like you can't do it if they can measure it. From a NEPA perspective, has the federal agency granting this approval looked at it, taken a hard look at the impacts, and decided that's still a good project, we want to move forward with it. And that's in NDOS, that's what the Bureau of Reclamation did. They said, we've reviewed it, we've received comments from Missouri, it's a good project, we're moving forward. And so they'll challenge it on NEPA grounds, but really it's not a substantive hard line, like you can't do this. It's just did the federal government know what they were doing when they said, sounds good, feel free to proceed.
Very good. Any questions of Tammy? Keep up that good fight. Mary, you and Brent are going to tell us about the legislative update.
Yeah.
We had a great time this year, no surprises, everything was wonderful. Is that what you're saying, or no?
You know how the last week of the legislative session goes. I think it was a good session. Brent is actually in a meeting with another city right now, and he is going to try and join us remotely. So I'm hoping that he can, but we have a quick PowerPoint. While I'm getting that up, I don't know, Dwayne was down at the legislature a lot too. I don't know if he wants to say a couple of
So
words.
Dwayne, I hear you miss it. You would have liked to have been in the mix this year, huh?
Yeah. It was a really good year for water at the legislature. You'll know in the start of the session, the governor had asked for like a 15% cut across the board. The legislature did replace all those cuts and expanded on it. So that March oil forecast made a huge difference in the state budget positively. And so I don't think the water community, including our project, could have had a much better session than they had.
I know John Shockey here is working like crazy, but the diversion really got that big boost by getting the bonding bill done. So our project is going to really jump forward this fall with the P3 bid. So it's made a huge impact in the community. Mary?
Yeah, I can go ahead and get started. And like I said, I hope Brent is able to join us online. If not, I will try and cover his slides. I just don't have as great of detail on the knowledge that he did. I'll just kind of start out that at the legislature, I was down there quite a bit for the project, and so was Dwayne. And then we also have hired Olson Efforts Lobbying. So John Olson is our main lobbyist. Kayla Efforts has also been helping us, and then Pam was also helping us. So we had quite a team down there doing that. Brent is on our financial side, so Brent actually was not down there lobbying for the project at all, but he has always been involved with our financing part of the project. So, like we said, it's pretty amazing that we're in construction, but just kind of a recap that we have made some pretty amazing progress. Everybody remembers those contingencies that we had for Senate Bill 2020 and 2019, and we kept, marking off that we did this or we got everything done. And then for 2021, we did secure funding for the project. That, just a little recap that I know you guys know, but I'd like to just cover again, is in 2019, we had the $30 million of legislative intent. $17 million was for technical permitting and land acquisition, and it was to prepare us to do our early out construction. And then we had that $13 million for early out construction. And as you'll remember, the $13 million was at a 90-10 cost share, and the other $17 million was at a 75-25% cost share. And then for Senate Bill 2020, it was amazing news when we received that certification from the state engineer, the State Water Commission, and then the budget section approved it. And that kind of opened up the gates so that we could start the early out construction. And this is just kind of a cut down list of everything that we had to meet and get done so that we could get that funding released to us and start the early out construction. So we overcame a lot of hurdles, achieved success, while overcoming many of those hurdles. We finally received that NDPDS permit, which took us a little time. And for 2021, we did have a successful session. We did receive $50 million for the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. It is in the water supply bucket. There isn't specifically written legislative intent, but the legislators had us go up and testify how much funding we needed for this project, and same with the municipalities. And the amount that we requested in municipalities is the $125 million in that bucket. And this is same items that we have been talking about that we would do with the $50 million. And it's actually the first time that the funding that we have asked for, we went in asking for $50 million. We were down to $30 million when it came out of the House, and the Senate was able to put that back up to $50 million for us. And is Brent on? I don't think so. Okay, now this is the part where I know the high level stuff, so I'll try and cover it the best. He's joining. Okay.
Should be on, or is?
Okay.
Sean, could you just ask Brian? He'd know. In the door behind you. No, he's not on.
Okay, so I can cover this slide a little bit with the bonding bill. The bonding bill, like Dwayne had talked about, was really huge for water. That FM diversion actually received full funding. That kind of paved the way for a lot of water projects and opportunities for future projects. And I think for Red River Valley Water Supply Project, having FM diversion fully funded is quite a big thing that we tremendously do benefit from that. For the 2021 session, we have $200 million shovel ready. We've been, talking about that, or almost shovel ready, but we really can only go as far as users can afford, so we need local affordable financing. We requested 40-year term for our loans, 2% fixed interest rate, program eligibility, and increasing the loan cap. That was at $15 million. So out of all of the bills, and there's quite a few different bills that have this type of loan terms in it, there's 3 different loan funds that are actually available through the state, is that there is 30 years in those. There is one program that has undefined loan terms, and we are hoping that that will become a 40-year term. We have quite a bit of hope and optimism that that will happen. It is at a 2% fixed interest rate. Garrison Diversion, Lake Agassiz, and the Red River Valley Water Supply Project are eligible for all of those loan funds. And the loan cap increased from $15 million to $40 million. And then House Bill 1020, I had already talked about in the water supply bucket that there was the $50 million for this project, but there's also one thing in there that is Section 13, that legislative management will study the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. So legislative management with input from the State Water Commission and Red River Valley stakeholders, which will be Garrison Diversion and Lake Agassiz, will study the management and operations of the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. And then they're also gonna say who should own and operate and manage the Red River Valley Water Supply Project, and then report those findings to the 68th Legislative Assembly. I was able to listen to part of the legislative management when they first met, I think it was on Wednesday, and they did recommend moving forward with this study and the study for the Northwest Area Water Supply Project. So I do hope that they do involve Garrison Diversion and Lake Agassiz, and that we'll be able to show the cooperation agreement that we signed that we think already lays all of this out. We have Century Code, so we hope to be able to work with legislative management on that. So I just wanted to bring that up, that we may have board members involved and asked questions as stakeholders. So we did have a successful session. When we were down there, I do feel that we had really broad support from legislators, new legislators that we didn't really work that closely in the past, did become involved and supporters of our project. Like I said, we secured the funding, we have access to better terms, and we think that we're set up really well for future sessions and to continue to work with the legislators. I'll just point out, when Water Topics meets in June, they do hope to go and see the intake site, to take a bus up there. Nothing has been finalized, but they do hope at the end of June, if that's when they meet, that they can take a bus up and see the intake site. And then I also suggested that they go see Snake Creek Pumping Plant, which also will be the intake for NAS, and then look at one of our irrigation projects, and they do seem really interested in that.
And we really like some board members there as well to thank them at the time. So any of you, if you have some time, that'd be great.
Yep, as soon as we hear that it's a go, and then hopefully Kim will be able to secure a bus. As soon as we hear anything that it's a go, or that they even have tentative dates, we will send out to Garrison and Lake Agassiz board members. Because it would be great to have more than staff there. I mean, they know me, but it really sends a large message when we have board members there.
Now, with the new ethics, can you buy them lunch at the Chieftain, or do you have to keep away from that?
No, this is something new, that when I was at the cafeteria at the Capitol, legislators bought me lunch this time, and I couldn't buy them lunch, so that was a turnaround. And that was kind of everything that I had on the legislative session. I know that Brent was gonna go a little bit into more of the financing terms if anybody had questions on those loans, because he was really involved in that, not for our project, but for just the financing part of it. But I sure would answer any other questions.
Any questions of Mary? Ken?
So will Water Topics at all be involved in the legislative study that they talked about? Is there any connection between those?
I hope that there will be. Like I said, legislative management just met on Wednesday to pick the studies that they were gonna do, and I know that this and the NAS study were suggested to be moved forward. So I do hope that it comes through Water Topics, and I do hope that we have a chance during Water Topics to have Lake Agassiz and Garrison say what their thoughts are.
Who, please? Oh, Brent's on, okay. We can see him, he got a new haircut. Brent, we're just at the
Yes,
end of
sir.
Mary's report, and just wanted, if you want to just summarize what your thoughts were about the legislative session this year.
Overall, I thought the session wound up really well for Red River and water funding as a whole. The couple of the big wins, I heard Mary talking about the loan programs, getting the caps raised on the loan programs, more projects eligible, the new water revolving loan fund, and the flexibility that was left in that loan program regarding terms, I think are all really positive things. And, the study, they did talk about that. I believe the study language is that water topics will be involved with that study. So on the ownership stuff, so they'll have some say in it. On a side note on the study that the Water Commission is doing they have underway regarding the funding and governance of the large regional water systems will be completed on June 30th. So I think that will be a good basis for the water topics and legislative council to use as the study they do. But overall, a good session, a little unique with the COVID setting and stuff, but that worked well. And I think a number of you were participating in the process, and that was definitely helpful. As Mary said, it's good to have board members and community members engaged and not just staff.
Very good. Any questions of Brent? Very good, Mary. Thanks. Thanks, Brent. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Man, I said next time I come back, I'll bring snacks. So.
I missed that? Oh, okay, thanks. So now financial report, 2021 budget analysis statement, tab X.
If you would turn to tab X, please. This is Lake Agassiz budget analysis statement. So I'll just cover the main highlights on it. So for 2021, we budgeted $2.6 million in income, have received $237,000 with a balance of $2.3 million. And the majority of that will be reimbursement from right now it is currently Fargo and Grand Forks that are paying the construction reimbursement for Lake Agassiz. So as the construction bills come in, that's when we will receive the income for that. For the expenses, our total expense budget is $2.6 million, expended $234,000, a balance of $2.4 million, and same thing, the expenses, most of them will be actually construction-related expenses. So for the count activity, Lake Agassiz started the year with $644,000 after you add in the income received, had total funds available of $882,000. After paying those expenses, which we list out each bill that we pay, we have $647,000 left in the bank on April 30th. And Mr. Chairman, auditors, even if we're doing an AUP, do like to see that the board seen this and approve the budget.
Okay. So you want a motion on this, Mary?
Please.
Can I have a motion, please, to approve?
Also move.
Is there a second? Kind of a reluctant board today. Must stay in this room rather than go out in the heat or something, I guess. Roll call vote, please.
Eltoff. Bigwood.
Yes.
Moen. Carlsrud.
Yes.
Erdman.
Yes.
Blomke. Mahoney.
Yes.
Riley. Schmaltz. Schmidt.
Yes.
Veen. Motion's carried.
Tab Y, bills paid, Mary?
Yeah, tab Y are the bills that have been paid. You'll see that it is a bill from Garrison Diversion, the first one for the construction. Even though it's Grand Forks and Fargo who have signed on to pay those, we still do run that through Lake Agassiz Water Authority, the checking account, so that it just shows that all of the invoices and reimbursement come through Lake Agassiz. And then you'll see that there is a bill from your attorney as well, from Onstead Twitchell, and then from Garrison Diversion for Lake Agassiz share with Brownstein, Hyatt, Farber, and Schreck, which is our lobbyists and national legal in Washington, D.C. And then another cost share invoice for construction. Exciting, we're under construction.
Do I have a motion, please? Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Eltoff. Bigwood.
Yes.
Moen. Carlsrud.
Yes.
Erdman.
Yes.
Blomke. Mahoney.
Yes.
Riley? Schmaltz?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Meehan? Motion is carried.
Dues are in the back, Z, that you can see. Unfinished business, what we wanted to talk about, that we talked about this morning, is proceeding and going ahead. We're talking about how Garrison and Lake Agassiz is going to work together on that. Tammy, or do you want to start to speak, and John, you want to finish? If we have two attorneys, we might as well use them both, eh?
Yeah. Do you want me to go through some of the issues that we were discussing? Okay. So we talked about the fact that right now we're working on the interim finance agreement for this next stage for the 2021-2023 period. There's, I put a draft together and I largely modeled it after the Series B agreement, which was the 75-25% cost share. So that agreement is an agreement you've all seen and agreed to as Lake Agassiz as well as Garrison. So we started with that. Did some tweaking to it, and most of the tweaks are involving Garrison because Garrison, the board passed a motion that Garrison's going to cover the small users' costs for now for this interim. Subject to being repaid later when we have, firm commitments to be in the project or not. And some of the issues that I raised just for discussion this morning is with Garrison paying this 18% of the cost. And what's going to happen 10 years down the road when somebody decides, hey, we want to get in on the project. What does it cost to get into the project? Well, they have to repay their portion of the original development agreement, which had a latecomer fee, and that was funded by Garrison and Fargo. And then there's the Series A and Series B cost share agreement that the local share was covered by Grand Forks and Fargo. And then the Series C agreement, they'd have to repay Garrison for the costs that Garrison is essentially fronting. And on top of that, there will be an interest rate that Garrison is taking a loan out to cover, and we presume it's going to be a 2% interest rate. But then one of the questions is then what would be an appropriate administrative fee on top of that? Or like in the latecomer agreement, the initial, or the development agreement, there was a latecomer fee that basically said, you should be in today and you should pay your fair share of what you think your nomination is going to be. And if you don't, if you choose not to participate and help the project move along, and in 15 years decide you want to jump in, there should be a financial penalty at that stage to encourage you to participate now, or else you'll have some kind of a little bit of a penalty later, because we want everybody to be in with the project participation agreement, which we believe will be negotiated within the next 2 years for the next tranche of money. But so what should that administrative fee be? So that's a question that is posed, that would encourage people to participate, and yet not penalize them later to the point where they're saying, well, we can't afford to get in. So there's kind of a question that has to be considered by Lake Agassiz and Garrison and Grand Forks and Fargo, because I'm assuming that Grand Forks and Fargo would want the same kind of, prepayment for their Series A and Series B. Another issue is what about, right now, we're anticipating funding in June for this next construction project that you just agreed was a good idea and found the low bidder to be appropriate and did the notice to proceed. Okay, so if we get funding from the State Water Commission on that, how are we going to pay for that? And that's why we need the interim finance agreement signed. We're going to be applying for a loan, but we don't know if the loan's going to be funded by the time the contractors are going to start submitting their bills. So one of the questions is, how do we fund that in the interim? And in the interim, one of the way I drafted it up, I don't know how it's going to end up, but the way I drafted it is to say that if there's bills due in the interim, then Garrison's going to pay 18% of that, and Grand Forks is going to pay 13% of that, and Fargo's going to pay, I think it's 67% of that. So that they're going to have to just pay those bills in the interim until the loan is funded. So that's just kind of an open question that we'll be discussing as well. But really, other than that, it's largely just duplicating the Series B agreement.
John Shockley?
Thank you, Mayor. I think just my comments are from a kind of a first principle standpoint, that when Tammy and I were talking about it, we really needed another interim financing agreement to bridge us for this 2-year period until we get to the next legislative session. During this 2-year period, we'll be working with the users to come up with a participation agreement and also trying to work out a longer-term financing for the project along with what that cost share should look like. So we really needed another agreement to bridge the next 2 years. And so, I mean, I don't consider any of the issues insurmountable. It's just working out the details. And I think we're pretty close on having something that we can present to Fargo Commission and Grand Forks City Council.
Very good. Very good. Any questions of the attorneys? I noticed Bernie Dardis came in here today. Good morning, Mayor, and just want to tell you our bid, which was estimated by engineers to be 26 million, came in under 20 million. So like Agassiz has the right ideas of how we do this, eh? So
Mayor?
any other business?
One other comment on this. We're probably going to want to have this interim finance agreement approved by Lake Agassiz before, we proceed. So I think you probably might be prepared to have maybe a special board meeting, at least a call-in to approve that.
We could do a virtual. You guys know how to do that now, so.
Just wanted to raise that.
We'll do that. But sometimes, downtown Fargo needs a little help with sales tax. Maybe we'll have a regular meeting too, so we'll see which works, eh? Any other business?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just have a
Al?
comment. We're talking about the measurement of the water for Red River Valley for NAS. I can tell you that there's more water evaporates off that lake than either one of those projects will ever take out of that lake. There's an article about, it tells how much water is in an inch of water on that lake. It's a billion gallons.
Oh, my God.
NAS will require 700 million gallons a year when it's fully operational. That means 3/4 of an inch of water will come off that lake for NAS. I don't know what the number is for how many million gallons there are for the Red River Valley, but more water evaporates off that lake than we'll ever see taken out of that lake. So just a comment.
Dwayne, you want to say something? I can see.
Yeah, I just want to add that we get a lot of comments from the Bismarck area, leave our river alone. And just as a kind of a measurement, the lowest flow that's ever been observed in the Missouri River at Bismarck is 13,000 cubic feet per second. And so the Red River project at full speed is 165. So that should give you kind of an idea of how little water we're actually taking out of the Missouri River. In fact, the lowest flow was 9,000 cubic feet per second, and that was due to the Corps of Engineers reducing the flow for construction purposes. But natural lowest flow ever in the Missouri River observed was 13,000 cubic feet per second.
Wow. Any other comments? I hate to adjourn early because Garrison will have their meeting early, and what else would happen?
We still have one more item, if you wouldn't mind, under unfinished business, user meeting update.
Which?
User meeting
Oh,
update.
go ahead.
So I was just going to say a couple things, and then Steve was going to actually just give the full update. The same team that we had going out last time is outgoing, and I think that we've met with most of the people in the room here. I'm out doing this. Dwayne is, Steve Burrian, and Sean Gaddy. Those are your four main Red River representatives. And then also at all of the meetings, we invite the closest regional Lake Agassiz board member. And if they can attend, they do join us. I do know that we have had really good participation with Lake Agassiz board members joining. We have definitely hit the majority of the systems, and a couple want us to come back and talk to them again. And then I'm going to let Steve do it in more detail.
Mr. Chairman, members of the
Steve
board.
Burrian, yes.
Thank you. Last meeting, you'll remember that you endured a 30-minute presentation at the end as a preview of what we were going to give to the users. And Mary said, as long as I stayed under 30 minutes today, everything should be fine. And I'll probably take 5. So you'll remember from the initial signups, we ended up canvassing from the Missouri River to the Red River to the Canadian border to the South Dakota border, and ended up with 35 users, all 15 rural water districts, and then 20 communities. As we approach the user meetings this biennium, We were down to 30 users, not because we lost anybody, but because we've seen that much regionalization already in the last 5 years. Fargo, West Fargo, and Casserole Water all commingled their usage. We saw the merger of Grand Forks Trail and Trail to form East Central, and then we saw the merger in the northeast of Langdon Row Water and North Valley to form Northeast. And so a lot of those users that at one point in time were independent now are part of other users. So we only had a target of 30 people to reach out to. So far, we've been out to 24 different systems, and some of those, or 24 different meetings, and some of those meetings, the regions are starting to cooperate enough that we actually hit 2 or 3 users at the same time as part of those meetings. I would say so far then we have really 2 big meetings left to hit all of the round of users the first time. One is East Central. We ran into a few problems with everybody out in the field there, so we're hoping to get there on Tuesday, June 8th. And then we met with Stutzman, but we also want to meet with Jamestown Joint, I always get this wrong, Jamestown Stutzman Development Corporation. And that one's been postponed a couple times as that soybean plant was moving forward. And so we hope to hit them in the very near future. Only misses we anticipate is we've had a little trouble tracking down Tuttle, which is a very small city northeast of Bismarck. They nominated for a very small amount and have had a change of mayors, and so we haven't been able to reach out to them. We had a meeting set up with Foreman. If you remember, Foreman did the real clever approach where they nominated for almost 0 water, but as long as they had a number, they still had an ore in the water. Dwayne and I joined the virtual meeting for Foreman, and nobody was on, so we don't know what happened there and haven't been able to catch up with them. And then Central Plains Water District, which is in Fezzen, kind of gave us hell no, we don't want to talk to you. So that's kind of the only real pushback we got. In terms of difficult meetings, well, I should say that when we went into the meeting, the only thing we asked them for at the end, and they were also reassured that we weren't asking for money, so that helped the tone of the meeting quite a bit. But we asked for a thumbs up, a thumbs sideways, or a thumbs down. And other than Central Plains refusing to meet with us, we didn't get any thumbs down. We got universally thumbs neutral or thumbs up, and even most of the thumbs neutral would say that they were kind of erring toward thumbs up, but we usually just had a cross section of the board or a cross section of the council, so we didn't have the ability to say absolutely thumbs up. So we thought the meetings, particularly when we had a chance to talk to them, even in systems where we had heard some negative vibes, once we got a chance to talk to them, it went very well. Probably the only difficult meeting we had right from the beginning was Devil's Lake. We had the bantering back and forth in terms of, do we connect to the Cheyenne River right above Lake Ashtabula, or do we connect some way midpoint? And I think there's still some hard feelings in Devil's Lake about that decision that was made. And so we were on the defensive from the beginning in Devil's Lake, and we've heard some feedback through the grapevine that they may decline to participate in the project. As a result, we do plan to go out and meet with them independently and just try to talk a little bit more without the, so many people in the room, and just see if we can't have a more rational discussion with Devil's Lake. Larimore only had a couple people at the meeting. They've asked us back, and so we're going to attend their June council meeting as well. It was supposed to be in May, but I had a UND football game in Virginia, and so they graciously moved that to the next month. Throw that in there, Mayor. And then Lisbon and Southeast Water users, we've heard that they would also like to have us back. And then in terms of new members, Washburn is still considering trying to get an intake on the river. You'll remember our intake is within a stone's throw from Washburn. And it sounds like McLean Sheridan has been pushing to team with Washburn to potentially get them in the project. So we may have a new user. And then in kind of a global sense of things, City of Aberdeen, South Dakota recently authorized a study with Bartlett West to look at bringing water from the Missouri River at Mobridge over to Aberdeen. And if you draw a line from Jamestown down to Aberdeen, our project would not be that much further than what Mobridge is, and we may have some efficiencies because we're already building an intake and we're already building pump stations and things. In addition, I know your district engineer and others have been pushing for the potential to use the James River as a conveyance mechanism. If we did that, it would be much easier for us to serve the Jamestown, Stutzman, Spiritwood area. It would be much easier for us to serve Southeast Water User District West over in that Oaks area. And then it would be much, much easier to serve in Aberdeen. So just this morning, the Public Works Director, City Engineer from Aberdeen agreed to meet with Dwayne and me and possibly Kip and Mary, whoever's interested, to go down. And I told them we would not put the hard press on, but we wanted to just show them the opportunities to potentially participate in this project as an option in their study, and he was very receptive to that meeting. So I think with that, I've covered everything I hope to get to today. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions by the team? Good report. I didn't know we were going to South Dakota. That's different, isn't it?
Give it a try.
So. Yep, do engineers wear untucked shirts? I mean, is this the new style that we're going to have, or what?
We do. It was approved in 2019, yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that's the new style or not, so. Any other business of the group? Motion to adjourn? Somebody want to say that, or, okay? I'll stay in session for another hour, I don't care. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. We're adjourned. Thanks, Tom, for coming on board. Looks like you're out in the fields a bit, so that looks good. Dave Carlsrud's having a good time in Valley City, I can see that, so, thank you.